Hi, my name is Ken Asselson. I wrote the microbiome prescription website, and this is a special study on one of the troublesome conditions people have. Multiple chemical sensitivity is one of them. Another one is mast cell activation or histamine issues. And the third one is SIBO or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So I'm about to embark on revisiting each and every one of those troublesome ones, just something I try to do periodically until we get good enough progress to actually do something. Okay, person in Europe asked me about MCS, which triggered this whole process. So the first thing is, I did originally a blog post, found some very unbelievably, bizarrely strong relationships, and eventually tracked down the source of the problem, and it was a processing problem. So pages there, I did confess my sins and indicate that there was a problem with the original post, and everything checked and double checked, etc. It took me pretty much a whole weekend to find out where the problem was, because it was an obtuse set of multiple things. But so much for that. Okay, let's go in. So I went and gave my experience. I've had it myself. It went away, which is fortunate. Family has it, and their versions have not gone away. They seem to have moderated, and basically I've given a quick summary here of my own history and experience with MCS, and a couple of things that helps. One of which is it would suggest that part of the issue is some chemicals being produced by the bacteria or being triggered to be released by a bacteria, like similar to mast cells, which is causing the problem. So I then went through and looked at all the current literature, basically 2022, so I'm up to date on what they know, etc. What I did find is a nice site that did association with other conditions, the Weizmann Institute of Science. And as you see here, we have multiple chemical sensitivity sitting right here, and these are the things that tend to be associated with it. For example, chronic fatigue syndrome, which is what this person has. We have fibromyalgia associated. We have anxiety. Anxiety has microbiome shifts associated with it too. So the fact that these three all have microbiome shifts associated with it, and asthma has shifts too. Some of these we don't know, or at least I'm not aware what the shifts are, but diabetes too also has shifts with it. But everything around it has bacterial shifts which are strongly associated with it, according to clinical studies. Which means, guess what? Multiple chemical sensitivity is likely to have bacterial shifts. So, what does the literature say? Oh, nothing. Hasn't been studied. So, this is my attempt to provide information about something which isn't out there. So, I went through and did some pretty hard-nosed one, and since labs are different in terms of what they report and even what percentage the same slips from the same thing, it all goes back to the Taxonomy Nightmare Before Christmas, which is an old blog, which goes and documents the issue, but goes through and we find some things. And what we do find is we find certain things has a very high probability of being associated with it, as in as you can see, the problem is the bacteria are too high. So I went through, did a whole bunch of things, and then ended up creating a separate link to put everything there. But because of the experience with Olestra moderating MCS, I decided to do due diligence and look at all the enzymes involved, all the things that are being produced and compounds being produced, etc. So it's a rather long, extensive thing. And we have additional things here where we have a slightly different way of looking at the bacterial data, and everything ended up being wrapped in here. So that's sort of the background for this blog post. Basically, exploration in detail, which is documented on the site, long, windy, technical, which is what some people expect from me. I go where nobody has the brain cells to go. And now we go over here and we have the person who wrote in samples. So we go in and let's do the regular analysis. My first thing I always take a look at is percentiles here. And the reason is it gives me a quick, very quick thumbnail analysis as to what's happening, because the shifts gives me some clues as to what to look at. In this case, what we would expect is the numbers all the way up and down here to be about the same number in every single 10 percentile. They're not. We have a overabundance of the low percentile, which is typically seen with long COVID and with chronic fatigue syndrome. So we have there. Now, what is causing this abundance there? Usually caused by something becoming too abundant, and there we identify the ones which are becoming too abundant. So that's sort of, okay, this is the real high level thing. We can now wander in and look at the health analysis, and we see things there, and basically none of the numbers here are of any real concern. For example, obesity, 51 percentile, prevalent is 42 percentile. So you're not over the thing, and a person, from my understanding, is not obese. So that is a wipeout. Further down, we have individual. One thing, however, stood out, which is this one right here. And it's a 70% indicator of mycotoxin, which usually means fungi or mold issues are involved. Whether it's in the gut already, as in a mold or fungi infection, or if it's in the environment around a person. It may not necessarily be the home environment, it could be the work environment, or in some cases, it could be the car to spend 2 hours a day in commuting. That could be having the mold in it. So somewhere around there is likely a mold problem which is busy feeding this particular bacteria, which is our canary for mold issues. So it looks like there may be something in there. Tracking that item down is usually a pain, because you end up really wanting to test your car, testing your home, doing additional tests to see if you can identify fungi in your gut. My suggestion for the first test for testing in your gut is probably going over to Form or any other shotgun ones which report a profuse number of fungi and molds in their report. And CFS reports does not report that. And some of the other specialized tests only report certain ones. So shotgun, the full, literally take a shotgun blast and get all the information. If this is a concern, that's usually where I would go next. Generally only need to do it once. You don't have to, it tends to be a bit more expensive test, so you only want to do it once, find out if it is, and if it is, then take appropriate action, working with your MD, and then perhaps retest. Dr. Harlock's stuff is here, and basically no particular problem. I see one non-ideal, which is Roseburia, which we already saw earlier, is there. And then other things like, we're a little bit low for Bifidobacterium. Same with Akkermansia. And just one a fraction high. But in general, in terms of everybody else's, the person is sitting at 98.8 percentile. In other words, basically, using this set of criteria in a healthy population, 98% people have worse problems than this person does. So it's there. Okay. So going back here, we go and we're going to go first over to research features. And we have a choice here, which is suspect bacteria. And we'll click this one. And it goes and automatically pre-checks things which appears to match the pattern. I'll sort that. So we see this one percentile. We are seeing a pattern of that being low. And 10 percentile, so it's very low. Other things which are low, things which are high. And we are relatively liberal in auto checking. For example, 65%. For some people may not be deemed that high, so you could uncheck it if you want. But everything else is pretty much up there. So we can go down here to the bottom and create a handpick one. And we have our 9 bacteria selected. And at this point of time, we could, if we want to, and probably should do, is just go and click suggestion. Makes your life easy. And there we have, and then we have the things to take. Again, remember, this is for just specific person's microbiome. It's not for everybody with MCS. Don't generalize it. You need to work on your own microbiome. There were 9 bacteria picked out of 40. Somebody else has a different 9, not anything the same. They have a totally different set of suggestions here. But here is the suggestions of things the person should do or consider doing. And confidence is basically how confident we are based on the number of studies we have on what helps shifts the right direction or what helps shifts the wrong direction, etc. We do notice something here. It's a couple of major avoids are common probiotics that often are taken. So in other words, those probiotics should actually be causing your MCS to be worse or to keep it up. So number one down here. So we have a fair number of things. We do have, for example, inulin is there. Often you'll find, shockingly, that things which are commonly advocated on the internet as fix-alls, as universal solutions, are to be avoided, which is probably why after 15 years of trying everybody's suggestions, nothing works. Well, this is hopefully goal is to change it. So far, the results of the artificial intelligence generated suggestions have been good. We have seen objective improvements in people and subjective, as in less symptoms are reported down. So now we have over here, we do have one probiotic here. We have banana on the list. Okay. All I can do is make a bad joke. Go ape up for your health. Navy beans, triphala. There, triphala is a very nice mixture of herbs from India. It is in some ways almost an antibiotic for a bunch of bacteria, and it's sitting there in high there. So we go down and we have there. So now we can go elsewhere. And we do have commercial probiotics here. And the commercial probiotics, I should explain, we have positive impact. These are things which has absolutely no negative impact on anything we're trying to change. That's basically a pretty high standard to meet. Negative impact are ones which hurts everything we're trying to change. In other words, these are things you don't want to do. For example, bifidobacterium is sitting up there. That's it. We have other things floating in here. So it's basically saying these are the real problematic ones. These are the ones which you could by retail name. But you also have things like up here, you have another probiotic, Miricin, which is positive. Why isn't it on the other list? Very simple. Our list is positive only. So Miricin has some positive and it has some negative impact. Generally, overall, it has more positives than negative impact, which is why something on the top list may not appear on the bottom list. And the reason is, this is the net result of the plus and minuses. It's there. Down below, it has to be absolutely only positives. fine line of interpretation, but a important one as to why self-comparison on this or not on the average. Okay, so that gives you the wonderful best suggestions looking at MCS alone. However, this person also has chronic fatigue syndrome. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to my profile, and we could actually do the lazy man's way of doing it, which for most people with chronic fatigue syndrome is the best way to do it. It doesn't require many brain cells. You just go here and you click that. And it will spin a while up top because it's calculating 4 sets of suggestions. It gives you a quick summary of things, which is a very simplistic summary. But you can go in and take a look at it. We have the slightly smiling happy face there, which means you can take it. It's not an absolute take, but it means that on balance is probably favorable. We have the thumbs up, which are things which are clearly to take. And then we have, of course, the thumbs down, such as a whole bunch of things to avoid. And you can see we got a lot of thumbs down for most probiotics. In other words, probiotics are not the solution for MCS, despite the firm belief many influencers will have that it is a way to solve the problem. It does not appear to be, at least not by these calculations. Okay, but more importantly, more technical details takes us over to all the fine details, including antibiotics, etc. So we have animal proteins, we have cannabinoids, gluten-free diet, etc. And usually whenever we see a combo, the reason combo is there is because that study used a combo. The question is, do the parts of the combo have the same effect or not? So usually what I do is I take each part of the combo, drop it up there, and see that, oops, resveratrol doesn't have a positive effect. Okay, let's try quercetin. It also doesn't have positive, although the combination seems to have a positive effect. Them in isolation don't. And generally when I hit a situation there, I tend to be conservative and say, okay, if each of these had positive impact, then the combination had positive impact. It's a clear take, no question asked. When you have mixed results, usually you want to do no harm, or you don't want to take any risk of harm. It now makes it as a risky situation, so I would not take either of those things. Cannabinoids, which is a challenge to get, high animal protein, high protein diet. These comes 2 different ways. This high protein diet may also be done with soy, and this is done with meat, but both of them indicated positive impact. A little bit of negative impact, but in general there. And then we have including antibiotics, etc. Top antibiotics are these 2. This one doesn't go into the blood system, it just goes into the gut, which means it's only going to affect the microbiome. So in one way, it's probably a pretty safe one to take. This one is a member of the tetracycline family, and it's there. And then that's it. Now, we have 2 sets of suggestions. We have the just tell me the suggestion list, and we have the MCS list. At this point of time, let's combine them together. How do we combine them together? It's pretty simple. We go back to changing there, and what we want to do is first is clear the handpicked suggestions. Always good to just verify that, yep, everything's gone. And now we go over to suggested bacteria. Again, we go in and do everything. And now we have everything there. And what we are going to do is I could do everything too. And we'll get suggestions. So the suggestions are there and the same thing as before. But if you go back to changing that one and do view bacteria consensus, you'll see we have the numbers are up to 5 now. If you sort, there, anything with a 5, everybody agrees about. It will help the MCS and will help everything out. There's no disagreement, especially if with the 5 here. So these are the things there which I enumerated out. If you go here, you find everything that everybody agrees you should not be taking. And the 5 zeros are the particular one. 5 threes are mixed, but 5 zeros, okay, and right. Okay, so we have these things: Mediterranean diet, Gucci fasting there, and we get a good long list of things that you should take a look in your diet. And some of it can get interesting, like for example, we say have high protein, and what we have here is pork showing up, which means yes, high animal protein, but no pork to it. Simple as that. So combining the information, you can get a better resolution. But again, this is the raw information, and often it requires a little bit of digging because everything is based literally on different studies. And I have a blog post up saying why we have contradictions, and it will explain the details. This is the raw data, but it often can be a good reference point to take a look. Again, you always have the choice of being able to just click there, and you see there 3.0 is better than 3.1 because everybody is agreeing to take it. Here's one of the sets of suggestions says don't take it, so you end up having to do some balancing. Okay, the last thing I'm going to show you is basically more a research feature. If you go back to the wherever, it looks like I lost the study, so I'll just go back to it. So if you go down into it, you'll find that we deal with products consumed. So one of the things, for example, is this particular thing seems to be high producers. So if you want to find out more about that, then it's very straightforward. What we do is we do research features and K compounds produced. And what we want to do is make sure we change it over to the appropriate set. And now it will come and show things there. And what we have is things, for example, here we have for people with MCS, the average percentile is 70%. You're 85%. That makes us hint or suggestion that overproduction of this particular compound could be involved. Here's another one which is there. And what we have is a little sweetness over here. If you click on here, I'll open it in a new link. And there we have the bacteria involved. And you will see that there's one bacteria which is really suspect. It's a 92 percentile, and it is the one that produces that chemical, which means that you may want to actually make sure it's included. I think it is included, but if it wasn't included, you may want to manually add that. The other thing, and let's go over here, is 88th percentile. And again, we can just click view. And we have this. Hey, guess what? Same troublesome bacteria. So this is a way of going in a little bit deeper into what's happening. So what we have is, here are the compounds being produced, and people in the group with MCS have this number. If you match or are higher, then you may want to explore a bit into that and find out which one. And guess what? We keep finding the same Bacteria hanseae showing up as the top of the list with a high percentile and 92 percentile and good percentage of the microbiome. So this is something which you really want to get a better idea. If you click on it, of course, you go over into the details. It's reported almost all of the time. The average is 1%, and we were at 2%, so you double the average. And then you get all of the details of things that helps it. For example, if you want to, let's suppose we want to go over the probiotics, then we have the probiotics there, and you can sort which one reduces it according to what we have for literature. Again, you may end up with overloaded information and often conflicting suggestions, all based on the fact that we don't have high degree of consistency or completeness in clinical studies. And what we are doing is we're doing the best we can with what we do have, and doing it with numeric calculations rather than somebody say, oh, I think it's this way or that way, without being able to explain. Everything can be explained by calculations here, so you can see exactly where the logic is coming from. Okay, with that much said, I think we are there. Actually, let's go over and let's do, go back to research features. Let's take a look at consumption. We're going to do the same thing. Who's consuming? And multiple chemical sensitivity. The 25 here indicates how many samples we are working from. And this is the number of samples using the same lab. So here we have there, and here we have ones which in general are low with MCS, and which case that one shows up as being a likely one. I guess what, it only has exactly one bacteria. Oops, and it doesn't have significance enough. The count here basically is a count of what may have it. We have low, low, low. Here's the number one. We have a low amount of, let's see if we can get a bacteria name from it. And that one we have there, the Escherichia. And again, we have at 7th percentile, we have a very small amount of it, but that is just another piece of the massive amount of data I will toss at you through the sites. Again, if you with chronic fatigue syndrome and brain fog, just click here and go with it, or click here, then after, not before, then do the MCS. And when I say after rather than before, is when you do this one, it clears out all of the consensus numbers. It starts with a first page. So you want to do that first, then do the MCS to add it to the combination. Okay, at that point in time, I'm going to shut up and get this uploaded.